iOS versus Android really no longer matters. If you've used one operating system your entire life, you might disagree, but to be honest, the differences between iOS and Android have just slimmed so much over time, there's really not that much separating the two now. Apple and Google might have you believe otherwise, but I can tell you from personal experience that iOS and Android are actually surprisingly similar. So for a number of years, I was totally living in the Apple ecosystem. I liked how closely knit the entire operating system was. I liked the ability to just download apps from the App Store easily, and I liked the wide selection of apps and games that were available. I liked how iOS looked and felt, and it was really easy to pick up and play with. But about half a year ago, I made the decision to switch to a Google Nexus 5, and to be honest, that wasn't that big a switch. Now at first it seemed daunting. I mean, after all, Apple doesn't want its customers to switch, and I was contemplating what surprising roadblocks Tim Cook and his pals could throw out to make the transition a misery. I also thought I might dislike Android. I mean, maybe I was used to the iPhone's small screen size, and I wasn't sure whether I'd like a 5-inch screen as on the Google Nexus 5, let alone the entire operating system, which I was unfamiliar with, and I wasn't sure whether it would actually be anywhere near as good as iOS. Now there was the initial shock of switching, but after that, I really wasn't prepared for what actually happened. Not much at all. I mean, yes, there are a couple differences between Android and iOS, but as I said before, they're just so similar now, it almost honestly doesn't really make that whole lot of difference. Now, let me start by talking about apps. At first, Google's Play Store was way behind the Apple App Store in terms of content, apps, and games, and apps were a deciding factor in deciding which phone to get. Now though, Google's really caught up to Apple in terms of the App Store. I mean, there are fewer apps in Google Play than the App Store now, but whatever apps you're actually looking for, they'll be in Google Play. I mean, as long as it's somewhat well known, and so long as, it's not like really new or an iOS exclusive, it will be in the Google Play Store. At this point, there are almost as many Google Play exclusives as there are iOS exclusives, and that's saying a fair bit. So, now that I've gotten past the subject of apps, let me talk about the look of iOS and Android. Apps become more important than the operating system over time, but can the cosmetic differences between iOS and Android be still cause for an intense rivalry? Well, although Android looks and feels different, at its core it's really actually pretty similar to iOS. So initially, I found some of Android's visuals appealing, but frankly, I really stopped noticing cosmetic details in a couple of hours. I mean, you can easily switch the wallpaper, and it's very easy to get accustomed to just ignoring the operating system and just doing what you want on your phone. I mean, at this point, I could even say, there's even an iOS 7 emulator in the Google Play App Store, so if you want the look of iOS on an Android device, you can get it. I mean, the looks should not be a difference between iOS and Android at this point. I mean, the truth is, once I start using my phone, I just want it to work. When I hit the unlock button, I don't stop to just look at the transitions or, gaze at the wallpaper. I just go to the app I'm looking at. I'm going to open Twitter, or I'm going to go to the game that I'm trying to go to. I mean, that might sound sort of uncreative, but it's just the cold hard truth. My priorities are connecting to the internet, opening and closing apps, typing in words, and occasionally taking and uploading photos. I mean, both iOS and Android are great at both of those things, and at this point, I'm not saying we've achieved complete parity, but I think in comparison to at least a couple of years ago, iOS and Android have both moved towards each other, or at least that's the influence of an increasingly app and subscription-centric world that has made the experience of using them both broadly similar. Both platforms have been good for a long time, but what my surprisingly undramatic move from one to the other has taught me is that they're now quite similar. Not the same, but samey enough that jumping between them isn't something that summons up any strong feelings. iOS versus Android is really no big deal, and you just have to make the transition for yourself to see why. Let me know what you think of this whole subject in the comments below. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Bye!